Hey, what's up friends? Gypsy back in today with my coverage of my tour run in the Facebook Central Cash Tour. So this is a tour run by the Facebook Central group. It's basically a group consisting of over 12,000 people, and it's this big, this big Facebook group, which is mainly sort of where people discuss like competitive analysis. They obviously have tournaments. They discuss like it's like a forum as well. Like people can like trade and shit there. But basically, there are tons of good players. A lot of, for those of you guys who follow like Smogon, who are part of Smogon, there are tons of really well-known Smogon players actually involved in the group. So basically, this was a Sun and Moon cash tour, and it's in the OU tier, obviously. Just judging by the mons on screen, and this tour actually started when Genesect was still legal in OU. As you can see, my opponent is using Genesect, and as the tournament progressed, Genesect was banned, obviously. So this first match actually took place on the 30th of December, so it was last year. And yeah, it's basically like a best of 3 tournament. If you beat your opponent, you advance to the next stage, and yeah, it just goes from there until there's only 2 people left. And then you actually end up winning the cash prize if you are to, win to go that far and win. So pretty self-explanatory. But I did say in a previous video that I would be bringing more standard play to the channel, and giving you guys some, enjoyable, a bit of a change from the draft scene. So because standard is good fun, especially when you're using fun teams. So I'm just gonna little background on my opponent. He's a guy that he's got like a really long name, and I'm probably gonna murder it, but it's something like Mir Sayad bin Almaz, and he's like I've seen him on the ladder quite a bit. He's a pretty good player, and yeah, definitely a formidable round 1 opponent. So as you guys can see here, he's got a pretty threatening team. Genesect could be a number of things. It could be like Expert Belt, it could be Scarf, it could even be Specs. I don't really think it's going to be banded just because he has Zydog, which is probably banded. This was quite early, like this was quite a while ago, so back then people were running like banded Zydog as well. Probably AV Magana because he does look quite weak to Tapu Lele. Just my thoughts going into the match. Probably Rock Slander. I don't expect this to be double dance or anything like that, or he wouldn't have a rocker, so that's most likely it. Maybe Scarf Ladi or even like a Specs Ladi would make sense. And the Keldeo could be a Scarfer too, so that's basically my thought process going into it. I'm going to be using a fun team made by my good friend NJMP. It's basically a hazard stacking offense team, real hyper offensive, using Mimikyu's disguise to set up, Scarf Jump in the back, broken Dragon Dance Z move Gyarados, Twisted Spoon Lele, which is a really nice kind of lure with Hidden Power Fire, especially because there are a lot of Mega Sizzlers running around at this point in the meta, and it does really nicely versus Store. It has Taunt, so if you need to, you can taunt opposing Tapu Finis to prevent them from defogging all your hazards away, and yeah, that just really aids in Mega Sharpedo cleaning up at the end. So we're going to jump into the match. I lead off with my lead Scum, he leads off with his Genesect. So this is actually a red card Scum. Unlike sort of the previous gen with Hazasak, you saw Custap lead Scum. This Scum aims at really punishing opponents for setting up in its face, because like a good player will see this sort of team and think to themselves, okay, this is Hazard lead Scum, I can like set up, I know it's only got Brave Bird probably for an attack, some sort of like bulky like Zygarde could set up in my face or something like that and just 6 on my team. So red card obviously nullifies that. So it's a pretty nice deck. I like it a lot. And we are just going to go for a round of spikes first up, as he does fire off an Ice Beam and he gets dragged out. And he's going to go out into his Latios. So, sorry, I get my rocks up here. Rocks were probably... rocks are ideal in the sense they hit Lando. Chipping down Lando would be nicer for my offensive sweepers late game, even Mimikyu. Spikes would have been nice, but rocks hit everything. Rocks hit the Lando, which is kind of the most important thing. Also for my Scarf Chomp to clean up at the end. So he goes into Laddie. He's just going to fire for Psyshock here. I have no reason to keep Scum around. I'm just going to sack it off. That's what you do on HO. And in comes Lele. Now Lele could be Scarf for all he knows. Scarf Lele was pretty popular. I mean, I could be Specs too and blow him back with a Moonblast. It's in his interest to switch out to Magenta, so that's what he's going to do. He's going to switch out. And you guys are going to see the damage that he takes does reveal him to be more than likely an Assault Vest variant, just because he does eat that up, and Lele is strong. So He's probably more than likely going to Volt Switch. Like, I've watched this guy play. I know he's quite an aggressive player. Like, he's not just going to stay in and Volt, because I could just go into like a Gyarados on a Flash Cannon or something like that. And Tapu Lele doesn't typically want to stay in versus Magenta, so he's going to Volt Switch. As I get off the HP fire damage, I do get a crit, which is obviously nice, but it still would have done about 25-ish%, which is nice for the rest of my team. Nice for putting in range of Shadow Claw from my Adamant Life Orb. Mimikyu, nice for Waterfall from Gyarados, things of that nature. So, and just nice to wear it down for Lele if that comes to it at the end of the match. So he's going to Volt Switch out. He's going to go right on out into his Genesect here. Now, Genesect could have U-turned on this turn. I didn't really want anything taking more damage. Lele is not Scarf, so it's not outspeeding Keldeo, it's not outspeeding Laddie. It's outspeeding Lando, but it's not killing it. It's probably defensive Lando, and Psyshock isn't killing it. So it is Psyshock, not Psychic. Psyshock is really nice for Chansey stall, and having Taunt on this set really helps you to like prevent Chansey from recovering up. So, because this team doesn't really like stall that much, apart from Gyarados the God. So he's going to go into his Genesect. I don't want to risk anything else on my team taking a big hit, so I'm just going to sack off Lele here to a Flash Cannon, as he does make that play. Interesting Flash Cannon Genesect, don't see that too much. But now I'm going to go into Gyarados. This turn I am going to Scout, because I do expect his Keldeo to be Scarfed, or potentially Specs, but I did expect him to be Scarfed. I didn't really think this Genesect was going to be Choice Locked. But just in case he was like an Expert Belt variant, I do switch out to Garchomp on this turn. And I don't really lose anything by it if he does switch. He goes into Magearna, and Garchomp was a mid-ground play in this sense, because he could have been sacking Magearna off to anything from the Garchomp. If I was like a Mega Garchomp, Mega Gyarados, and I had like just clicked Waterfall there, or even tried to set up, he was going to go into Magearna to sack it, but going to Chomp here allows me to scout for the T-Bolt on the potential Expert Belt Genesect, as well as maintaining offensive momentum versus his Magearna switch. So I'm just going to click EQ here. He could have predicted me to predict his Lando to come in and like SD or something like that, so staying in and Fluid Cannoning was the play, in my opinion. He does have ways to threaten. My Lele is gone at this point, so his Magearna's job is essentially done. Like, nothing on my team really is bothered by Magearna anymore, so I can definitely understand him staying in there, as he's now just going to bring in his Landorus T, and obviously Garchomp isn't really doing much to this Landorus T, considering I'm choice locked into EQ. So I'm going to go into my Gyarados series. He goes for the U-turn, just maintaining the offensive momentum, maybe assuming that I was Scarfed Garchomp, or just knowing that defensive Lando could take anything. He could then go out into his like Scarf Genesect and Ice Beam me that turn. So yeah, fair enough. He goes into Genesect, and now I'm just going to go into Garchomp, just scouting for the T-Bolt if he does have it, and if this is a choice like Genesect and he locks himself to Ice Beam, then Gyarados can just set up. So that's what's going to happen. He's going to fire off the Ice Beam, and I don't think, unless he's a Bluff Lord, that he is actually Expert Belt, as we are going to get the DD up here, as he's going to go into Keldeo. So we DD up. Now I thought at this point that he may be Scarf HP Electric, but the fact that he's playing his Genesect like he's Scarfed, led me to believe that this Keldeo was potentially a Z move or Specs variant. But you're going to see he does go for the Scald, so he was actually Scarfed, but he wasn't carrying HP Electric. And I am just going to fire off the Z Power Flying and bop this Keldeo. So Gyarados gets the Moxie boost. This set is just destructive versus opposing offense, because once Gyarados gets some speed up, there's not really much that can stop it on offense. So Gyarados is just going to fire for Waterfall on the Genesect that comes in, and Lando's Intimidate is going to be nullified essentially, because I'm going to get the Moxie boost. So that's pretty nice. Gyarados putting in the work. He goes into Zydoc here, trying to chip me down with E-Speed, but Gyarados is pretty bulky. It's not really going to care about a banded E-Speed too much, so we did take him out with a Waterfall. That damage confirmed that he was banded, so yeah, that made a lot of sense just looking at team preview. But in comes his Laddie, and he's going to try and bait me to go for the Fly, assuming that, like, he's going to, like, I figure here that he'd, like, try and bait me to go for Fly, to which then I'd have to take like Chip from Lando's like helmet. He could like try and make me play around it, but essentially like I can just get Waterfall damage off on this Laddie, and then win with these two remaining ones. And if he did want to switch it out, I got Waterfall off on Landorus, so he's going to double out into Lanner's, just kind of letting his mons take stealth rock damage. I don't really agree with that, but at this point he's lost anyway, so like, I don't know, he had to like make some sort of, try and play for the choke in that sense. But he's going to go into his Latios here and just get taken severely down by the waterfall, as now Laddie can just go for the side shock. So like, had I bounced there, like I obviously would have killed Laddie the next turn, but he would have lived a waterfall from that range of health. So maybe he should have like stayed into side shock. Either way, Mimikyu and Sharpedo have essentially won the game at that point regardless. So Mimikyu's going to fire for Shadow Sneak. And that is game 1, so we're going to get right onto game 2. Alright guys, so we are back with game 2 versus my opponent. I'm not going to pronounce his name again. Yeah, so we're using a really fun Ricardo team this time. Built around Spec Super, Scarfed Genesect, Scarfed Laddie, just defensive Rotom, a pretty nice especially defensive Marowak, and standard Metagross. So this team is, yeah, tons of fun to use. Basically, you maintain like offensive momentum with Genesect, you bring in Hooper on, you know, U-turns and Volt Switches from Rotom and Genesect respectively, and you just blast things away with Specs Dark Pulse and Specs Psyshock. Having Scarf Lighty in the back is a pretty nice revenger for stuff like Scarfed Guard Jumps, you know, stuff like Ash Greninja. And, you know, this was around the time where Mega Alakazam was seeing a lot of usage. Obviously, it's not sort of too fun having Magearna around, but it's still a pretty good mon. It's pretty solid. One of the only real viable Laddie sets at the moment. Gigavolt Havoc Laddie didn't really exist at this point in time. It was mainly just Scarf Laddie and Specs Laddie. So yeah, a pretty fun mon and a pretty fun team. My opponent has definitely a threatening team. He's got the Kartana, which is a mon that is just really nasty to play against, especially if you don't have a solid resist to its stabs. I mean, I have my like bulky Marowak, but this is a lefty's variant of Marowak, which will aid in taking on Kartana, except he could well carry Night Slash, like even like a Z move Night Slash. So yeah, just kind of determining his set is going to be key. If he is the SD speed boost set, like with the timid nature or whatever, then that is going to be very threatening. Yeah, we'll see how we go. I'm going to lead off with, I choose to lead off with my Genesect. At this point, Scarf Genesect was really solid as a lead in this meta. You just U-turn on anything after getting the download boost. You know, opposing leads like Landorus are scared out with the potential of an Ice Beam turn 1, and you really just maintain like offensive momentum right off the bat, and can just bring stuff like Hooper to just threaten the opposing team. But he makes the Magearna lead. I'm going to U-turn out. Last game I did show like that I was comfortable predicting him to go for Volt Switch, and I felt as though the fact that I do have Marowak, which is a really solid Magearna check, he wasn't really going to click Volt Switch. If anything, he was probably going to click Fluid Cannon or Flash Cannon, or some sort of offensive move, maybe HP Ground, but he does just go for the Flash Cannon, wanting to just get some chip on my Marowak, just in case I stayed in, or maybe if I went to Laddie, had I gone to Laddie, he could have got like Flash Cannon damage off as opposed to just going for the Volt Switch. But I think Fluid Cannon might have been the better play there, just firing off a big Fluid Cannon if he had it. But he does choose the Flash Cannon this turn, and now I can, I believe I get up my rocks this turn. As I do, he goes into his Ninja, which is a huge threat. But I do have a kind of specially defensive Rotom. I think it was specially defensive at this point. We did end up changing it to physically offensive, but I did have like a specially defensive Rotom. But I took him into Hooper, predicting him to Dark Pulse this turn. I didn't think he would go for U-turn. I felt like he would try and get damage off on Rotom. He could have U-turned that turn, expecting Rotom to come in, going out to his Kartana, but because I have like a solid check to Kartana and Marowak, I felt as though he would just try and get damage off on my Rotom. Had I stayed into predicting the U-turn with Marowak, then he would have, something would have taken big damage, or like a Will-O-Wisp or a knockoff even. But he does just go for the Dark Pulse here, and Hooper tanks. Super is fat as fuck on the especially defensive side, so I'm just going to fire for Dark Pulse on my own. Sorry, I actually fire for Focus Blast. This game happened a long time ago. Fire for Focus Blast, catching the Magearna on the incoming. I did expect him to be a Focus, sort of an Assault Vest variant, because he did bring that to our last game. So, and Magearna just is a really solid Tapu Lele check. If you look at his team, like his team gets really destroyed by like Scarf Tapu Lele, so AV Magearna made sense once again, and we get the Focus Blast, big Focus Blast hit off. This turn I didn't expect him to stay in, and I didn't really want to risk a double Focus Blast and lose my Hooper, which could potentially be really useful versus the Ninja if I want to tank, like if I can bring it in safely on the Ninja and tank another Dark Pulse if I need to. Also doing a million to defensive lander with Dark Pulse, so preserving Hooper is key, and I do expect him to switch out here, recognizing that was Specs damage on his Magearna, so I am going to switch out as he makes the switch himself out into his Landorus T, and as I go out into my Marowak. Now, a bit of an odd switch on my part, but had he gone for the Volt switch there, I would have stopped it with Marowak. Had I gone into something like Latios to catch the Landorus switch in, he could have vaulted on that and gone out into his Greninja to then start firing up Dark Pulses, or even gone out into his like Scarf Chomp. And I don't really have the best switch-ins to Scarf like Chomp on my team because it is such an offensive team. Hence why I went Marowak, but he makes the hard switch out to Lando, and that's okay. This turn I am going to switch out to my Rotom, as he does just go for the U-turn, I believe. Or he gets up his rocks. He gets up his rocks, my bad. He's going to U-turn this turn, and that's completely fine. I'm just going to fire for Hydra. It was my best play. It chips down the Magearna, putting it in range of Volt Switch, so I really lose nothing by firing for Hydra. Get a bit of lefties back too, which is always nice. So now I'm going to Volt out as his Magearna is down, meaning Genesect is far more free to fire off Ice Beams. In this matchup you see Ice Beam, like his Ice Beam check is Greninja, which really doesn't enjoy taking rocks and then Ice Beams and then rocks and then Ice Beams. So his team is looking pretty susceptible to going down to Ice Beam at this point, so that's definitely something I want to keep in mind. But now I bring up my Scarf Genesect to just maintain momentum versus anything you wanted to bring out. It scares out Ninja, it scares out Zam with U-turn. Again, it scares out Lando. Genesect was so good when it was in OU, man. This thing was fucking broken. So much fun to use. He's going to switch here, go into his Lando, which is fine. I keep the momentum in my court. And this is the beauty of this team. It just allows you to bring in Hooper on the forced Lando switch in of the opponent. So now I can just fire off a Specs Dark Pulse, which almost ends this Garchomp's life. You're going to see Garchomp takes, like, he almost gets OHKO'd by this Dark Pulse. Takes 89, so that's ridiculous damage. Like, Garchomp is fat, and Hooper almost killed it in one shot. So, yeah, I'm going to let Hooper die here. It's at a point where it dies to everything on his team. It's outsped by everything barring his own Lando. His Chomp actually goes down to Life Orb there, which is cool, so not a Scarf Chomp, not something I have to worry about. He's actually Life Orb Chomp, so I'm thinking that his Kartana might be a Scarfed variant. So I go into my Genesect here, and because his Garchomp wasn't Scarfed, I felt as though this could be Scarfed. And after taking rocks, I'm in a range of health where Secret Sword can kill if he's max attack. So I want to scout for that. I'm just going to switch out into my Marowak, as he actually switches out himself, fearing the Flamethrower, and goes out into his Landorus. But the fact that I switched out first, like the reason, like I don't care that he switched out the Lander, because preserving my Genesect, which is my Wincon, is just of the utmost importance in this match. So, like, yeah, like Marowak has taken damage, but Marowak is pretty useless now that I've confirmed that his Kartana is not a Scarf variant. So now Marowak can go down here. It's done its job. It's got up the rocks. It doesn't have to check Magearna anymore. But I do go out to Rotom, just in case he did want to EQ. I guess like it was worth keeping Marowak around potentially for the Kartana. But he does just go for the U-turn here, so had I gone for the Shadow Bone or something, like something would have taken a big hit. But in comes Kartana, and Rotom's not trying to take a hit here. Definitely not trying to take a hit, but he goes down to his Greninja, predicting my Marowak to come in. As I do double back out into my Marowak, because I don't want my Rotom to die. It is my switch into Ash Greninja at this point, so he is going to bring his Ninja, and I think now I sack off my Marowak. Yeah, so he turns into Ash form here, which is fine, because I do have Feast Choice locked, and I do have Scarf to Genesect and Scarf Laddie to Revenge. So I go into my Laddie here, hoping to kind of bluff that I was a Specs variant, and kind of act like I didn't think that Dark Pulse could kill me, but I am actually Scarfed, and I do bob him with the Draco here. So had I gone into like Genesect there, I would have just been putting myself closer in range of Water Shuriken, and I would have taken Chip with Landorus and the Rocky Helmet, and it would have just invited his Kartana in the next turn after I took out his Landorus with a Hydro Pump. So Latios gets the kill on Greninja, which is huge, because now Genesect has basically got the game won at this point. So he goes into his Kartana. I'm going to switch out So I go into my Metagross knowing I can tank a Night Slash if you wanted to go for it, but it does go for the all-out pummeling here, which is pretty cool to see. This is pretty interesting set. I think it's kind of meant to check Heatran, which is pretty cool, as Heatran does take on Kartana fairly well. So it also does a ton to Metagross, as you can see, 50% to Metagross. Metagross is pretty bulky, so I'm going to go for the Ice Punch here. It's all I have to hit this thing with. I don't have Hammer Arm, and in case he did go into Lando predicting the Hammer Arm or the EQ, I could have killed it off with the Ice Punch. He's just going to Swords Dance this turn as I fire off another Ice Punch, just putting it in range. Actually, I think I did have Hammer Arm, but I didn't want to miss, and I didn't want him to get the speed boost. I did think he was SD, like timid, so he will get a speed boost after it takes out my Metagross, and the fact that I have two Scarfers in the back, or a Scarfer in the back and Laddie who can outspeed a +1 Kartana. My safest play at this point was just going for 2 Ice Punches to ensure he was in range to go down to a Surf, so he's going to take us out here with a Secret Sword. Get his speed boost, but that's not going to save him from Scarfladdie. So this is why Scarfladdie was so good around then, because people had discovered this Kartana set and it was just a nice sort of revenger, outspeeding by just 1 base point. So he's going to go into his Zam here, and I'm just going to start firing off Surfs. Putting this thing in range of Ice Beam from Genesect is what I kind of want to achieve here. Had he gone for the Shadow Ball here, I would have just gone out to Genesect, U-turned on the Lando, gone into Rotom, then Hydroed, and one with Genesect. But he does actually Focus Blast there, predicting something. I don't know why he wouldn't just Shadow Ball predicting my Genesect, as I'm pretty sure it does kill at this range of health, but I guess maybe he thought like it didn't kill or something, so he does go for the Focus Blast there, but it didn't really matter at that point. Zam was in range to die to an Ice Beam after taking 1 Surf, so Landorus is going to come in here and trying to take the U-turn, but I am just going to fire for an Ice Beam and take out the Landorus. That is those are my matches versus my first opponent in the Cash Tour, and I advance to the second round, and I'll be bringing you guys that soon. So